Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to a Steve stream that Steve is doing in order to calm Steve's troubled nerves over having a Treasure House guest leave. Steve is so upset that he's talking about himself in the third person. Not that that takes much. Yes, for those of you who are not slavishly following every detail of this channel, I had Christopher Russell, our little corner of BookTube's own resident hedgehog, over here for a week, and it was great, absolutely great. For me. He was savagely insulted and pumped full of apparently horrible food. So it might not have been great for him, but I had a great time. And then when the week was over, I poured the remnants into his car and off he went. And I moped for a couple of days. I made a barrage of videos today to get back into the habit of talking to my imaginary BookTube friends, and I thought I'd do a Steve stream as well and yield the floor to you. I hear a siren in the distance, so it's just like old times. It's been humid and soggy here. We've got more humid and soggy weather coming. And then when that is over, a genuine heat wave is going to settle down on Boston. 3 or even maybe 4 days in the mid 90s Fahrenheit. That might not sound like much to some of you in the Middle East, but that is pretty bad for here. And of course, I start the Steve stream in an incredibly dark moment. I'm not oblivious to that. I'm not trying to downplay it at all. It's an incredibly dark moment in history. In my country, the United States of America, the racist, sexist, fascist, lying moron who is president of the United States has announced via tweet the totally illegal and apparently permanent military occupation of cities that don't agree with him, of democratic blue state cities. All the major democratic blue state cities will have not only his Gestapo, but also Marine platoons, Marine detachments to terrorize the citizens. It's no longer a question anymore of getting violent illegal aliens out of the country. It's just to terrorize the citizens. And it is preparatory. It is groundbreaking. It is softening the ground for making sure that those troops are everywhere during the elections for the midterms, and especially for any other presidential election. It's softening the ground. It's preparing. It's that horrible word, normalizing the presence of dictator loyal troops on the streets of American cities. Which, as I pointed out before, these things only happen in one way. No matter what era in history you're in, they only happen in one way. Intimidating a nominally free electorate in order to make sure that you stay in power has been the pattern of behavior since Pompey did it in ancient Rome. That's 2,000 years. It's been done hundreds of times since then. So that's one thing, of course, is that the president of the United States has announced to the world, especially to the population of the United States, that he intends to occupy opponent cities with military force. That is the end of American democracy. That is the end of the American experiment in self-government. And the other thing, of course, no less horrifying than that. In fact, I, of course, find the first one more horrifying than the second one. But the larger world is going to find the second one more horrifying than the first one, which is the racist, sexist, fascist, lying moron who's in charge of the United States has announced that he's invading Iran. He's not allowed to do that any more than he's allowed to send troops into opposing cities. Both things are flagrantly unconstitutional. They're completely illegal. And it doesn't matter because the courts are supine and we only have 2 branches of government here in the United States. We have the executive and we have the judiciary. The judiciary is an entirely wholly owned subsidiary and employee of the executive. I wish the founding fathers of the country had devised a third branch of government, something like a legislative body that would have the power to check the president, defund the president's government, impeach the president, remove the president from office. Maybe you could give that deliberative body the power to declare war and to release the funds for war. Maybe you could do all that. And if the founding fathers had thought of creating such a body, well, then you wouldn't have one rogue syphilitic lunatic destroying the entire world. He wouldn't be able to do it. But he is able to do it, and he has announced he's pretty much announced that he is invading Iran. That the United States, his military, which is not ours anymore, it's just his, is invading Iran. And he is demanding, again, via tweet. He's not allowed to do this. He's not allowed to make such tweets. It's totally illegal, even for a president. But he is announcing not only that people should evacuate Tehran, which is a gigantic city full of 10 million people, but also that he is expecting nothing less than total surrender. His words, unconditional surrender from Iran. And you only have unconditional surrender if you're in a war. So I am aware of those facts hovering over this Stevestream. I'm trying to use this as a way to cheer myself up in spite of those facts. It'll help a lot once we start chatting. Then we can talk about anything in the world. But before I do that, that was the initial throat clearing, was to let you know that I am aware of that. It's not like I'm one of the 175 million Americans who will tell pollsters that they literally don't ever look at the news because it depresses them. I'm not one of those. I know what's going on. The president of the United States has announced the military repression of his enemies, wide scale, city by city. Exactly the thing that 2 years ago I was called a lunatic for saying he would do. And the president of the United States has also announced that the United States is going to invade Iran with international support, without it, with a game plan, without it, with an exit strategy, or without it, who knows? It's all illegal. One man can't do this, but nevertheless. So I wanted you to be aware that I'm aware of the historical context so that we can get that out of the way. And we can start talking about bookish things, which is what we're best at. And the only bookish thing I have in my mind before we turn things over to the chat is to remind you all of the rules. Unless the world is destroyed by warfare, because of course a war in the Middle East will be a by proxy war for the world's major superpowers. Unless the world is destroyed by warfare, this summer, like all summers, will be a season of library book sales. And I thought I would remind you of the rules. Rule number 1 is that your library book sales are no longer your own. They are mine. They are mine. You have walked all blind and innocent into the trap of knowing Steve, and now you can't get out. So you must go to all your nearby library book sales every weekend. And if your girlfriend or your boyfriend says, "Oh, honey, I don't want to," or "What about my cousin David's wedding?" tell them they know what they can do with the wedding. Steve commands it. You are to go to your library book sales, all of them. And when you're there, you are to take high definition, zoomable pictures of everything that might be of interest to Steve and send them to me from the library book sale. None of this, I might go back tomorrow when everything's 5 for 1 bag of books. Now, send them to me while you are in situ and wait there until I respond with what I want. Then immediately buy everything I say I want and mail it to me in the fastest way possible, pausing only long enough to swing by your local convenience store and get some Mega Stuff Oreos. I will expect that package, books and Mega Stuff Oreos, the same day you send the pictures. And if you don't do any of this, I will cancel you. I have the power. Look what I did to Robin Song Reeds. Your precious little Robin Song Reeds making his songs in his little leafy fairy bower. What happened to him? Huh? I did. That's what. Unless you want to go the way of Robin Song Reeds, you will accede to my demands, as irrational as they are. So now that we're done with that, I just wanted to remind you, I told you this last time. What's the matter, baby? Why the profile? Why are you acting so dramatic? God, on our walk this evening, she was just a mess all over the place. I don't know why she's acting this way. Here, Frida, come down here. Come down here. There you go. Just sit and relax, all right? Just sit and relax. Now we'll turn it over to the chat for the first time in who knows how long and see what you all have to say. So Rasmus Jensen is first out of the gate. What's the best book you've read this week? You people, I swear. It's Tuesday. And yet you are so spoiled that you ask me what's the best book I've read this week. Meaning not only you're sure that I've read a book this week, but that you're sure I've read more than one so that they can be a best. And you're right, but still, it's a whole nother subject. It's a subject I mean to address somewhere, somehow, maybe in a video, on the freakishness of Steve and what's going on here. But anyway, the best book I've read this week was actually an oldie but a goodie. It was Lost Pueblo by Zane Grey. I thought it was terrific. I'm still trying to piece it out. I'm still trying to figure out if maybe I overliked it. Maybe I liked it because I was reading in authorial humor that wasn't there. I was thinking about this. I was thinking maybe it's possible that he was just writing the high-pitched melodrama of the time, and you read in humor that he wasn't intending. I don't think so, though. He contrives so many ridiculous scenarios. That wouldn't happen. He doesn't do that in other novels that I've read. But it would be that one. Gandhi says, anyone else feeling like the ending of the movie Planet of the Apes with George Taylor looking at the Statue of Liberty could become a reality? Sean Patrick says, Steve, from your reading, how would you rank the motivations of the Crusaders? From my reading? What about my personal experience? Doesn't count for squat with you? Number one, religious zeal. Not at all. Number two, chance of plunder. That's the one. You got it, baby. And number three, an opportunity for adventure and excuse to get away from you know who. Deb, you mean? No, I think it was number two. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I know horror doesn't always do much for you, but did you enjoy Tremblay's Head Full of Ghosts? No, I didn't. It was trying to do all sorts of things. I saw that, and maybe even I saw that it was effective in doing some of those things, but it didn't do any of those things to me. So if you ask me, did I estimate Head Full of Ghosts, that might be one answer. But if you ask me, did I enjoy it? No, I didn't enjoy it. Sean Patrick is back again. Steve, were you ever a beer drinker? No, I was not. And historically, did they run non-beer drinkers out of Southie? No, beer was very popular in Southie. Rodensey says, Steve, thank you for talking about Nero Wolfe recently. I now want to read the series. Is the best way to read it, collected edition, novels, and short stories. Do you like the 2001 show? I don't particularly like the 2001 show, and I think you should just read them in order. I not only because that's the way Rex Stout wrote them, but also because that slavishly imitates Steve, which is always a good thing to do. Start with Fer de Lance and just read them in order. And the short stories were volumes. Rex Stout brought, every once in a while, he'd bring out a volume with 3 short stories in it. So you're not going to be slowing down there at all. SQE says, what are your thoughts on Harrington translation of Orlando Furioso? I like it. It's handily defeated. All translations are handily defeated by the Penguin Classic, but I like it. Bookends and Books says, hi, Steve. Well, hello. Brian Constantine is here. Steve, don't talk of yourself in the third person. How can the young people understand? Having just spent a week with one of them, I don't know how much the young people understand in any person. SQE says, do you like Jerusalem Delivered by Tasso? Is it worth reading? It is worth reading. Yeah. I wouldn't say that I like it. Again, it's dutiful and deliberate and serious and metrically sincere. And then you read Orlando Furioso, and you don't want to go back to that kind of starched pro forma epic. I don't just want to go back. Georg Shoemaker says, good morning, Steve. Lokester Reed says, it's annoyingly humid here in London, which is not ideal for London. No. That's why I think that we've got more rain coming here in Boston, because the humidity is off the charts here. I think it's very, very sticky. So, and I think there's more rain coming. We'll do a blob watch later in the Stevestream just to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure that more rain is coming. And on the backside of that, we're going to bake. Colombian Thunder says, always excited for a Stevestream. Well, that makes 2 of us. Sean Patrick says, Steve, with your vast background in serial killers, where would you rank the Russian Chitakilo on the depravity meter? You are probably in a better position to do that than I am. My vast background in serial killers, as you put it, let's hope that Google is not listening, comes from an independent project that I was asked to do, and it was American serial killers. So I really did not stray afield. The non-American serial killers that I know the best, there was one that was so adjacent to one serial killer in America that I was reading, and that is the what's his name? Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. Tall, homely guy, looked a lot like Thomas Harris's description of Francis Dollarhide. He drugged young boys and left their bodies in a burial ground. The same woman walking her dog found 2 different dead bodies. And eventually, I forget his name, Stephen something or other. But anyway, I read up on that a little. Obviously, I didn't do anything near as exhaustive as I did with American serial killers, but that was the MO there and the idea there, and also the changeover to the period when a serial killer really couldn't get away with it for long, was so prevalent in that case that I did read up on it. But aside from that, the only non-American serial killer that I know is one that I know extremely well, and that's Jack the Ripper, the first of them all. The Big Shep says Steve finally released the hedgehog he nursed back to health, back into the wild. Well, I don't know about health. Apparently, from all that I'm hearing, the nonstop barrage of wine and calzones here at Hyde Cottage is a little bit unhealthy on the human body. But then what isn't unhealthy on the human body? Apparently, also, I tend to want to do more things, and you people want your 15 hours of sleep. So I don't know, but he is released back into the wild, yes. And I'm sure, in answer to all the emails that I've been getting, I'm sure that he'll make a video soon. SQE says, thank you for inspiring me to read The Fairy Queen, by the way. Oh, wonderful. Colombian Thunder says, I live 40 minutes from LA. I have a lot of family in LA. This entire idea of occupation is depressing, especially as an immigrant. I am now a citizen that was 4 years ago. We'll see how that goes. You're in severe danger. You are not a citizen. So you should leave if you are at all possible, if you have anywhere to go other than here. Because believe me, anywhere you could go of your own volition is better than where you'll be sent if you're taken off the street. And if you're an immigrant of 4 years standing, I'm assuming that means that you do not have lily white skin. We are weeks away at most from the Gestapo simply arresting people for being brown, any shade of brown. They did it to a candidate for mayor in New York just yesterday. So, well, anyway, we don't have to go down that line. You all already know exactly what I think on the subject. None of you have listened to me. None of you have paid attention. None of you have done anything about it. So you'll take your chances. You should leave this country as soon as possible. Clarence Beeks says, Steve, I was accosted by dude bros who blew vape in my face and called me a human reading slump. Help me seek vengeance. Oh, there's no real vengeance to take on them. Really, they deserve our pity. They really do. Kevin J.N. says, Steve, you talked about a Zoom meeting in regards to possible work next month. Are you ghostwriting? I am indeed. I have a little project coming up. I hope that it stays little. I am still living in terror every day of a big project, of a serial killer project. That same guy, I don't think, is done with me. Sean Patrick says, Steve, my nephew lives in East Boston, and I found it interesting, though slightly dangerous, though it is gentrifying. How is East Boston viewed by other Bostonians? We don't think of it as real. We don't think of it as real. The only positive thing that anybody in Boston proper thinks about East Boston is if a plane goes out of control at Logan and crashes, they'll probably hit them first. They're like a buffer zone. Rodensy says, what do you think of Tony Scott's films, Man on Fire, Unstoppable, Deja Vu? I don't know that, well, directors don't matter. So I don't know that I know films by his name. I think I liked Man on Fire, didn't I? I'm pretty sure I did. Gandhi says, hearing good things. Oh, wait, what is this? This window that is just okay. Hearing good things about the new biography of Paul Gauguin, Wild Thing by Sue Prideaux. Do you recommend? I do not. Shoemaker says, the founding fathers expected Christian gentlemen instead of churlish drones in the legislation. I don't think they did. They might have expected that, sure. But I think what they were planning on is that the number one thing you can count on for one man to check the actions of another man is ambition. They were counting on the fact that the legislative would be fiercely ambitious against the executive, and that the judicial would be fiercely ambitious of its own prerogatives. And that ambition, that founding quality in people who seek higher office would always compete and counterbalance each other. I think maybe in some of the Federalist Papers you can kind of sort of see it, that maybe they thought that the judiciary might at times be, just by random chance of personality, subservient to the executive. But I don't think they ever in a million years imagined that the executive would go autocratic. It would employ the judiciary, and the legislative would simply disappear, would do nothing. To assert its own power, would do nothing. I don't think they ever anticipated that. And that lack of ambition is not goodness, I should point out. Sean Patrick says, oh no, the chat jumped. Sean Patrick didn't say that. I'm saying that. So we have to go find him. Oh my God. Let's see here. There are a lot of people here. Okay, let's see here. Sean Patrick, Steve, did you like Story's White House by the Sea? Don't know what you're talking about. Do I? I don't know what you're talking about. SQE says Saint Steve Donahue the Great. We all love you. I don't know about that. Uh, Divas Mirko. Oh, that's new to me. We need a Selenian Steve Donahue autobiography. That would be odd dog. Little bits and slivers of it have been written, but not the whole thing, not even close. SQE says, Steve, how much influence do you think Netanyahu has on current American government? Quite a bit. Maybe not him specifically, but the AIPAC has a huge amount of influence. Andro says, good evening. Aslan says, Frida is so cute as always. Yes, Frida's adorable. She wasn't. I can't even get mad at her. But we just came in from a walk, and she was maddening on the walk, just maddening. We started out okay, but we met a bunch of dogs, and the dogs very much want to meet me. They very much want, I squat down, so I'm at eye level with them. They very much want to smooch, put their paws on my shoulders, rub their heads against me. And she just stands there at a distance, watching it all and not liking it. She doesn't like it at all. She doesn't want to talk to them herself or play with them, but she doesn't want, it all strikes her as very poor taste, and it keyed her up. So she was terrible. But anyway, Shoemaker says, do these rules apply to German? Oh, no. I am a ruthless dictator, but I am not asking any of you to do international shipping. If you are international, you are off the hook. But if you're in the US, you're on the hook. Your library sales are no longer your own. I might want nothing. You might send me pictures, and I might say you are free to shop on your own and then go home to your worthless partner. I might say that. But if I don't say that, I'm going to squeal like a stuck pig. I'm going to cry like a first grader. I'm going to want what I want immediately, and I'm going to want you to fill the package with Mega Stuff Oreos. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I picked up Tomlin's book on Peeps. I've never read his diary. Am I good just reading Tomlin? I assume that's a joke of some kind. No. Are you good reading Tomlin and not reading Samuel Pepys' diary? No, you're not good at doing that. No, you're not. DZIGIN says, Steve, what's your favorite Agent Pendergast book? To me, Relic was just okay. Oh, no, to me, it's Relic. Yeah. Aslan says, Steve is probably the only person that can credibly do the top 10 books I read this week videos. I just thought that was funny, that's all. That someone doesn't bat an eyelash on Tuesday of saying, what's the favorite book you've read so far this week? And it's true. It's since Sunday, I've read quite a few. I've read enough to have a favorite. I think it's funny and also worth a video what all this is, how I am freak testing all of you, and you are all having your boundaries stretched. What I really wonder is how do you go back to other booktubers? Anyway, Colombian Thunder. Been bitten by a large Superman bug lately, and your recommendation videos have been great. Any recs on Superman television? Would you recommend Would I recommend The Adventures of Superman? Yes, I would recommend The Adventures of Superman. Yes, I would. Long before any of you were born, a little boy was running home to see The Adventures of Superman on TV when it was originally broadcast. So yeah, I would recommend The Adventures of Superman. Oddly enough, on the total other end of the chronological spectrum, I would also recommend Superman and Lois. It is very, very good. SQE says, Steve, would you consider yourself more left-wing or right-wing or neither? If you don't mind me asking, I am somewhat new. Yes, that is a big question on this channel. From time to time, people have wondered at my politics. There's never been anything explicit. I hate the fact that a racist, sexist, fascist, lying moron is in control of this country. And I hated that fact before he announced the military occupation of opposing cities and the invasion of Iran on his own. Without any debate, without any plebiscite from the people, without any legislative control at all, without the legal authority to do so. I trust that tomorrow or the next day, the rush of apologies will flow in from all the people that said I had Trump derangement syndrome. But that doesn't have anything to do with politics, mine or anybody else's. That's a lunatic in charge of the most powerful country in the history of the world. My own politics, when I have occasionally spoken that maybe it's not a good branch of politics to savagely brutalize people, I've been called a bleeding heart liberal because that's how far things have gone in this country. Oh, you want to be decent to other people? Oh, you've got to be a demon-crat. No, I have been vague about my politics because you wouldn't believe them if you heard them. Kevin Lumbert says, hey, BookTube family member, Grin. Why do I know that name? Did you email me recently, Kevin? I think you did. The Big Shep says, Steve, my parasocial surrogate dad. Will you forgive me for reading The Crossing for June on the Range? No. Why would you? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? It stinks. Why don't you read Lost Pueblo instead by Zane Grey? You will enjoy it more with 100% less chin stroking. Rodency says, Steve, do you think Denzel Washington is a superb actor? I very much do, yes. Where exactly does he place for you? Most of his work ends up being movie star stuff, but he has done stage and more actorly performances. I've never known him to be effective on stage. I know that's heresy. Everybody loves the idea of a bankable Hollywood star who's also a bankable Broadway star. I've never thought he was all that effective on stage, and I don't think it has anything to do with miscasting. I just don't. I think he's the quintessential version of Peter O'Toole in My Favorite Year. I'm not an actor. I'm a movie star. But in his movies, what can't he make good? Those Equalizer movies should be terrible. They should be absolutely terrible. Instead, you can't take your eyes off them. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I have Twain's Roughing It, Life on the Miss, and Huck Finn. Good for you. Kevin says, I just read a fantastic short book I think you'd love, A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen Peck. Have you read it? I think I've read that. I'm not really sure. Well, it's not jumping out at me, so I might as well say no. Sean Patrick says, are those his three best? Oh, Mark Twain. Well, I would substitute Innocents Abroad for A Life on the Mississippi, but they are still really good. I don't really rank things like that, but they're still, you can't go wrong with any of those three. Dylan says, hi, Steve. Good to see you live again. I've recently been reading the Samuel Butler translation of the Iliad. What do you think of his translation? I've enjoyed it very much so far. It is a lot better than it is given credit. I just found a Fall River 1-volume collection of the Iliad and the Odyssey of the Butler, and I was tempted to make it my Iliad for the rest of the month, but I went without translations this month. I know I shouldn't. It only feeds into this weird anti-translation mood that I've been in. I should have picked a translation and stuck with it, and I still can, but I haven't been reading a translation for my yearly read of the Iliad, but I have read Butler, and I think he is better than people give him credit for. DZIGIN says, Steve, can you recommend a first book for Rocket Summer? I got no idea, and this is my first participation. Well, are you going to do Rocket Summer in order rather than risk the anger of Michael K. Vaughan? Mike says that that he has broken the thing down into chronological segments. So the first one is the misty beginnings of science fiction all the way through the 1930s. That gives you a lot of possibilities, a lot of them. So it's really up to mood. I mean, you've got a lot of classics in there that would naturally fall, like War of the Worlds, for instance, or First Men in the Moon, or my beloved 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or even A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. He offers, once John Carter goes to Barsoom, we are given scientific sounding explanations for all the technology they have. So it counts. You could do one of those to start off with. Let's see here. Must Read More says, have you ever considered doing a read aloud of The Outermost House? I couldn't. Could I? The Outermost House is not out of copyright, is it? The book has to be out of copyright for me to read it out loud. I would love to read The Outermost House out loud, absolutely. And there are Cape Cod books that are out of copyright that I could do, but I don't know. With a thing like that, I worry that if I did that, or like, for instance, I read a dog book out loud or something like that, that my editorial comments would start to swamp the reading. And it'd be 90% me talking instead of the book. Although when it comes to read alouds, I don't know. I've already complained about this to various people on Voxer. I had fun today in today's read aloud, and I don't understand how many people on BookTube just don't seem to have ever heard the word fun. They don't know it when they see it. I shouldn't complain because most people did. Most people just laughed along with me, and that's fine. This isn't art surgery. I wanted that. But there were a couple of people that were just, I don't understand. This does not compute. And the sad thing is I know that they totally lack humor everywhere else in their life as well. It's not like they're checking at the door when they come on YouTube. Anyway, James says, Steve, thank for turning me on to Overholser. So good. Like L'Amour, but a little less action and a little more character. Can't wait to read more. Yeah, he isn't as fleet of foot as Louis L'Amour. Although I should point out that when Louis L'Amour is not fleet of foot, when he's writing something with more character and a lot more texture, he's also really good. Really, really good. He doesn't lose his magic that way. DZIGIN says, and Steve, when did you become a sex symbol? What does that question mean? I have always been one. I trust you're going to acknowledge. SQE says, Steve, have you seen Trump speaking on the Bible? Do you believe him when he says it's his favorite book? No, I don't. No, I don't. No, nothing that he says is true. Unbelievably, about any other American politician, you could say he lies a lot. With Trump, you can say nothing he says is true. Nothing he says is true. So no, of course, he doesn't know how to read. He's functionally illiterate, so he doesn't have a favorite book. Matthew says, speaking of Jerusalem Delivered, is there a translation you like or recommend? I just bought the Oxford World Classics version. That'll be fine. That'll be just fine. Manny, do you prefer Fairy Queen or Orlando Furioso? Orlando Furioso, absolutely. I think I almost prefer the former since I can't read the latter in the original. The Penguin translation is just fine. Daniel Pemberton says, hi, Steve. First time I'm catching a live stream. Well, welcome. SQE says, Steve, what are your top 3 favorite epic poems ever? I don't really do that. And if I did, I doubt you would appreciate the answer. I really do. Probably, I mean, of course, it's the Iliad and Odyssey, but probably the only controversy I would court is that I would rank Paradise Lost over the Aeneid. That doesn't help you any. AKA JK, all of you who are watching, AKA JK, click on that eraser head icon. He has revived his YouTube presence and joined us on BookTube for all the fun. You should go over and subscribe. Was just watching Smallville and you started streaming 8 episodes in and it's been good fun. 8 episodes of Smallville, I assume you mean. I also uploaded 8 episodes today. but yeah, the beginning of Smallville is, the monster of the week. It's one person after another being radiated by all the kryptonite that's in Smallville from the meteor shower. But it's also, you get much better stuff with the Kents. You get wonderful moments with Tom Welling and the Kents, and the long-standing WB melodrama itch that can get so tedious and consume whole episodes, whole arcs in a season. That hasn't really happened yet. So yeah, those first 8 episodes, yeah. Rob says, hi, Steve, saying hi from Costa Rica. A lot of rain down here, really. Yeah, there's some parts of the American Midwest that are getting rain and lots of tornado warnings. But I think very soon, before the end of June, most of the country is going to be baking in heat. SQE says, I'm loving the Fairy Queen. Okay, but that's like the 6th time you've mentioned that, isn't it? SQE says, Steve, have you ever smoked anything such as cigarettes or vapes, etc.? No. My nose is not vestigial like yours. I actually can smell things. And it smells worse than anything. Literally anything, even dried blood. Not to mention the fact that it gives you cancer. All of it does, 100% of the time. It's not that the scientific studies are wrong. It's that the doctors, the so-called doctors who have put out scientific studies saying that it's what is their absurd figure? 10%? I think they say 10% of people have an elevated risk of lung and throat cancer. No, it's 100%. And those doctors have had all expense-paid trips to the Bahamas. They've had family medical bills, including, ironically, cancer bills, footed by Big Tobacco. They've had their research underwritten. Well, how much do you need to underwrite this paper for our own private journal? Well, I guess $10,000 is what I usually ask. Okay, we'll give you $1 million. And I wonder if we could see the results first. Anyway, no, I have never. Sean Patrick says, Steve, you rarely mention your neighbors. Do they bask in your glow, or are they yet unconverted? I have some good neighbors here. I meet them mainly through their dogs, but they're good people. Josh Myers says, any book recommendations on the Israel-Palestine conflict? No. I mean, historical recommendations on what it was. It's completely changed. It is completely different. So you might as well be asking me for historical recommendations on the Ottoman Empire. And maybe you are. If you are, you should read Ilan Pappe, Pappe. His book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, will do just fine as a start. But it's ancient history. There is no Israel-Palestine conflict anymore. So as long as you know that, and I don't always know that people know that. I think they're trying to be contrary. Or maybe the smartest kid in the room when they ask for this kind of recommendation. You are asking for a completely outdated recommendation, as long as you know that. Oh, no, the chat jumped. All right, let's go find out where we were. I don't know how far it jumped. Sorry about this. Here, let's just keep looking. Oh my God, how many people are here? For God's sake. There we go. Colombian Thunder. I really need to read The Fairy Queen again. I tried it years ago, but couldn't get used to the language. Hope to be more patient with it. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I'm reading Dune for the first time, and I think it's the best sci-fi I've ever read. Should I stop after the first 3? Well, I presume you're also watching my read-alongs. But no, you shouldn't stop after the first 3. The 4th book is my favorite. God Emperor of Dune is my favorite. You shouldn't stop after the first 3. Why would you stop? Westfield Space Agency says, hi, Steve. I just read The Big Sky by A.B. Guthrie in honor of June on the Range and enjoyed it. What do you think of Guthrie's other novels? They're all really good. He's an author worth reading. SQE says, Steve, have you ever liked Trump ever? No. I have scathing editorials about him back when he was just a blowhard citizen in the 80s and 90s. Back when he was a bankrupt businessman or when he was a first-time competitor for president ever. No, I have not. He's a racist, sexist, lying, fascist moron. Cinema Skin says, directors definitely matter. No, they don't. Only to dude bros. That's like saying the author of a book doesn't matter. No. There's only one person who writes the book. Think there's only one person who puts a movie together? No. The actors, the assistant directors that actually do hands-on work with the actors and get them blocked out right. The director of photography overall. No, not really. No. Sean Patrick says, Steve, White House by the Sea is a Kennedy book you must know. Oh, right. Oh, that's right. About Kennebunk. I did read that. No, I didn't. I never did get to it. I do know the book, but I never read it. SQE says, Steve, who's your favorite book illustrator? Probably Shepard, the guy who did Winnie the Pooh and Everybody's Peeps. I mean, if you're going to do occasional book illustrations, then Henry Bugby Keane, for instance, illustrated a lot of books. I absolutely love his work. I've never seen a bit of him that I didn't like. Also, I have a soft spot for the brothers Hildebrandt. DZIGIN says, Steve, do you like the Dragonflight graphic novel? To me, it's short but sweet. I don't think I've ever seen it. Ryan says, Steve, thank you for becoming again a visible hedgehog. Do you have any thoughts on respect for Pale Fire? Nabokov pokes so much fun at his characters and the reader, but I find it highly entertaining. Well, I'm glad that you like it. I don't like it. I've never found any worth in Nabokov. DZIGIN says, I meant Dragon Riders of Pern. Yeah, that's what I thought you meant, but I know that it exists, but I haven't looked at it. Rodensey says, do you have any liking for Colbert's Late Show? He's a pretty well-read and witty guy compared to the other idiots right now. Yeah, but he's evil. He's more well-read than they are, but that's not hard. And I mean, in a town full of cokeheads, the one-eyed man is king. He's evil. He's a horrible, poisonous person. So I don't have much use for him at all. No. And he also did his part. He did a smaller part than most, but he did his part. to help this country fall to fascism. It's not funny. The subject isn't funny, and he made sure his audience laughed at it. His audience in the studio, and however many thousands of viewers he has outside of the studio, he made sure they laughed at it every night. Anyway, Gandhi says, "Did you enjoy Tannenhaus's biography of William Buckley?" I did, with heavy reservations. I did. I need to get a copy of it to David Murphy. I want him to review it, not me. The Big Shep says, as someone who grew up in the evangelical American church, Netanyahu's influence is in large part directly proportional to how much those people want the world to end. Spoiler, they want it a lot. Yes. That's a key that most people don't get, the connection. Most people don't connect the dots. They think, well, okay, crazy fire-breathing fundamentalist pastors in the American bread box might say that. In the Bible Belt, they might say that they want to hurry the apocalypse. But that doesn't have anything to do with anything. But those people are pulling the strings in the Trump administration. They are largely staffing the Trump administration. That is a huge, heavily implied but unspoken goal of Project 2025, which is running the country right now. So yeah, when people, so you can see what I mean then, Big Shep, you can see what I mean. When people say, how much influence do you think Netanyahu has on the Trump government? There's a broader picture at work that isn't that. SQE says, Steve, who are your favorite Latin poets? Who are the most beautiful? Well, again, this is now 4 times now. I don't really do favorites like this. I have lots to say. I don't really rank things. I guess my favorite, if you mean by Latin, poets who wrote in Latin, so ancient Roman poets, my favorite is Ovid, probably, or Horace, or Catullus. I think the one who wrote most beautifully is Virgil, but he's not usually my go-to guy. Sean Patrick says, Steve, back when it was happening, how much did Boston's big dig affect people's everyday lives? Quite a bit. For a certain amount of people, you couldn't get from one place to another. It was a headache. The city planners who hired the firm to do it, they were shown in great detail. I saw the blueprints. I saw the plans. They were shown in great detail how much this would help the city in the long run, and they eventually agreed to pay for it. But with almost no contingency plans for making it work. This was one of the largest urban construction projects ever done in a city that wasn't shut down to do it. It was still, you were still expected to get 2 million workers and commuters in every day. It upset quite a lot. It improved things. It immeasurably improved things. But it was not easy to live through. Scott Jones says, another Steve is right. I'm 300 pages from finishing the Rutherford Don Quixote. First, one half flew by, such fun. Second one half is too much speechifying, boring. Yeah, I often get called a poser, I think was the word that was used in a comments field the last time I said that the first half of Don Quixote is worth reading and the second half is not. I think I was called a poser. Oh, this guy's obviously never read not only Don Quixote, but anything. It mortifies me to remember years ago how much comments like that bothered me. Brian Constantine is back. Steve, I went to a library sale this weekend, but they checked my phone and said no Steve fans. They better not have said that. No, they don't ever check phones. They're perfectly okay with people being obnoxious. And if they did check your phone, you should have said, but this is for Steve. I presume they're all fans of my channel. They would have let you do it. Rodensy says, I like that you mentioned Superman and Lois. Where does Hoechlin rank from your lineage of Superman actors? Some people don't like his look. Oh my God. So the chat is just going to ask me to rank my favorites on everything. I don't really do that. He's pretty effective. And the show was very, very creative in hiding his physical dimensions. He's 4 feet tall. He weighs 60 pounds. And they were very good at hiding that. The showrunners for Teen Wolf were very good at hiding that. It worked really well. I thought the whole show worked really well. DZIGIN says, to me, the best Superman is cartoon from the 40s, just beautiful. Yeah, the Fleischer cartoons, but you don't mean that. You just say that. The key environment for you to say that is surrounded by people at a bar or at a friend's house or at a party so that they can all stop talking and you can say, oh, you don't know about that? And then tell them about it. It's actually very boring. It's beautiful, but it's boring. It's not anybody's favorite. It's just their favorite to drop. You drop it. Sean Patrick says, Steve, you famously love warm weather. Do you like the U.S. desert Southwest? Well, no. No, I don't. It's full of snakes. But I do like, nowadays, I like warm weather. It's amazing for me to think about that. Because once upon a time, even on the lifetime of this channel, I did not. But apparently old people like it warm. I'm looking at those temperatures that are coming. It's just hilarious. David Murphy he's headed towards the same kind of weather over in the Twin Cities as we are here. He's looking at it and just shuddering because he hates it. A true son of the upper Midwest. I'm looking at it saying, oh, I'll bring it on, except not all of me. I'm looking at 4 days of 90-degree weather and I'm thinking, oh, great. Oh, fantastic. So for once you won't be cold. But then I think about Frida, who really doesn't handle the heat well at all. Not in the slightest. I'm going to be worried about her. Aslan says, I learned a great quote recently. Quote, I don't really like literature. I prefer a good book. Quote after my own heart. Dylan says, whenever Steve says we wouldn't believe his politics if we heard them, my mind always drifts towards him being a Jacobite. Nope. Nope. Manny says, speaking of June on the Range, I've been loving this event so far. Hasn't it been fun? I gave it up for a week. I had a cartoon hedgehog here, so I gave it up for a week, but I'm going to get back in the saddle. 2 highlights have been Lonesome Dove and True Grit. You really can't do better than either one of those. CS Reader says, what do you consider Percival Everett's best book so far? My favorite, you mean? I don't know. I don't know. Brian Haas says, what's your opinion of Tristram Shandy? He comes up in every Stevestream. I was disappointed. Thought sucked, to be honest. Yeah. Okay. Good. We agree. Largely, we agree. I thought that was going in a different direction. Gandhi says, what is your complaint regarding the Gauguin biography? I thought it was shallow. It's very easy. It wasn't what I wanted at all. It wasn't what I was hoping for at all. It seemed very easy to me. Very, I don't want to say Twitterified, but every aspect of it seemed to play towards, oh, please don't stop paying attention. Oh, please don't stop paying attention. Instead of the obverse of that is for a writer to say, you're not going to stop paying attention. I'm going to see to that. I'm not going to have to plead you. You're just not going to do it. And that, I didn't get that anywhere in the book. And also it seemed to me to be borderline boring on the artwork, which is pretty big deficit in a Gauguin biography. Kevin J.N. says, thanks for recommending Valdez is Coming. I loved it and am now halfway into The Gunfighters. Your book recommendations are spot on. Ain't they though? Thank you very much. I take that very seriously. I take my book recommendations very seriously. I love to hear when they land. SQE says, Steve, what are your thoughts on the Golding Metamorphosis? Very good. You could be reading more, says, hi, Steve. Do you have a favorite biography of Cervantes? Did you like Peter O'Toole as Don Quixote? I did not like Peter O'Toole as Don Quixote. A rare instance where I didn't like a performance of O'Toole's. I just thought he was completely miscast. Just completely. But there is a biography of Cervantes. And again, I am not going to be any help. It's old. It's big. I don't think I'm not going to be able to help. I don't remember the details on it. It's old. It's well backwards in the 20th century. And it's thick. It's over 500 pages long. I saw a copy of it at the Brattle like 2 years ago. And I still kick myself that I didn't grab it. AKA JK says, who's your favorite of the Thor side characters in the comics? Early in the Simonson run, I would have picked Better Ray Bill, but I recently read the Balder miniseries and now I'm torn. If you're talking about the Simonson run, keep in mind my fundamental Thor run is Lee Kirby, not Simonson, even though Simonson is great. So I think my favorite side character, especially in the Simonson run, is Carnilla, Queen of the Norns. Although I always have a soft spot for Thor's crazy father. I always have a soft spot for Odin. I don't know why. I just always do. I almost always find him interesting. Let's see here. Rodency says, do you have a favorite book on neuroscience? I don't have a favorite book of anything. That is now the 15th request for someone to tell me that my favorite book of X, Y, or Z. I don't have a favorite book of anything. Can we? Maybe if we say that, then we can forestall such questions. But haven't read enough on neuroscience to have a favorite book. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I know you're not totally sold on Philip K. Dick, but a few works of his I've read are unlike anything I've ever read. Well, yeah. Yeah. And if, let's say you go to a daycare center and you've got a bunch of 4-year-olds and they're all finger painting, and they're just basically learning their letters. They know their letters, but they don't really know how to use them. And you take a Jello cup, the kind that the adults are going to serve to the kids at their break. You take a Jello cup, take a couple of Quaaludes and crush them up, put them in a Jello cup and hand that to one of the kids, and then tell them to write something with his letters. That also would be unlike anything else you've ever read. That wouldn't make it good. That would still make it a waste of your time. Andrew Russell says, where is the best place to start with Batman comic books / graphic novels? It depends on whether or not you're going to end up being a Dude Bro Batman fan. I would start, if you're not going to do that, well, even if you are, because they don't read. So I would start with a classic story rather than an era. Why not start at the top? Read Batman Year One. Just start there. And if you're totally hooked on the basics, that Batman Year One has the basics in place, well, then you can move on to other storylines. Ian Brady says, Steve, I'm such a fan. Oh, isn't that nice? SQE says, Steve, have you ever been to Ireland? I have. The west coast of Ireland was one of the few places, one of the a dozen or so places in the world during my travels that I not only went, but stayed for quite some time. And from there went everywhere in Ireland. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Danger Kid. Steve, thoughts on Anna Kavanaugh's Ice? I recently read it and then reread it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I can't help but think it would be a major dude bro book if not being written by a woman. Boy, oh boy, would it ever. That's actually an excellent insight. Yeah. It would be a major dude bro book if it were not written by a woman. Yeah. I reread it when Penguin brought it out, and I don't really like it. I don't really think there's anything to it. But yeah, it would totally confuse them if they knew about it. They're never going to know about it, but still. DZIGIN says, do you like Calvino's If on a Winter's Night? Is it worth it? It is worth it. I don't say that I like it. It won't take you long to read. If on a Winter's Night is probably my favorite book of his. So, but I mean, there's not much to it. I mainly like it for Venice-related reasons and not really for anything else. But worth it, definitely, because it's not going to take you long. Sean Patrick says, Steve, is Kingfish the best book on Huey Long? No, there's a biography called Huey Long that is much better. I think that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't have any way to look this up. If I look it up online, I'll bump myself out of my own chat. There was a big biography about 70 years ago called Huey Long that I don't remember the author's name, but that is the book to get even now. Alice says, hi, Steve, glad to catch you live. I'm sticking through Dan Jones's The Wars of the Roses because I realized lately I have been picking books like Jellyfish, and I don't want that. I don't know what that means, to pick books like Jellyfish. Are you not liking Dan Jones's The Wars of the Roses? Because you shouldn't stick with it if you aren't. Right? You're not guaranteed tomorrow. You shouldn't force yourself to read a book you're not liking. If you want to read history, read some other book. Read 1066 by David Howarth. I guarantee you'll like it. You'll keep reading. You won't have to force yourself to. Must Read More says, I think The Outermost House is in public domain. It's on Project Gutenberg. Oh, is it really? It's on Project Gutenberg. That means it is in public domain. Oh, wow. Still, I think my editorial comments would swamp it. Nobody wants, 20 hours of Steve's stories about Cape Cod. SQE says, Stephen, it's just Steve. It's just Steve. It's not Stephen. Favorite American president in history. I don't have a favorite. I think now that you are just baiting me by asking me my favorite of literally every subject that comes to your mind. I don't really do that. I don't really do favorites. I really, really like John Adams, John Quincy Adams, William Howard Taft, John F. Kennedy. I don't know. You guess it. Says, were you a fan of the aughts Legion of Superheroes cartoon? No, I wasn't. Alice says, speaking of which, I can't seem to find a Wars of the Roses starter kit. Is it something you would be interested in doing? Much appreciated. I could do a Wars of the Roses starter kit. Sure. Andrew Russell is responding to someone else. Oh no. And for the sin of ignoring Steve in his own Stevestream, the chat jumped. So now we have to find it again. It starts with an @ because someone was talking to someone else in my own Stevestream. So let's see that. Let's try and find it. Oh God, look at all these people. There we go. Columbian Thunder. Do you have any videos or books on medieval history? Anything on the occult? Would love to read books on those topics, but not sure where to start. Well, I don't know what aspect of the occult you want to read about. Medieval history, though, good Lord. Have I not done a medieval history starter kit? I certainly could. It's a fascinating period to read about. Sean Patrick says, Steve, someone should contact Street Medic and let him know you're streaming. He may be asleep. Yeah, he hasn't shown up, and neither is the Spaminator. Frederick Michaud says, hello. What is your take on Emile Zola? And do you have a suggestion where to start reading? Oh, no, I don't. I don't have takes on either one of those. Sean Patrick says, did you force the Hedgehog to install your AC window units? No, I didn't. We were having such a good time, such a laid back good time, that I didn't. I didn't do it. And now I'm starting to wish I had, because I think those 4 days of heat are going to be pretty bad. I don't know. Maybe I can get my surly houseboy to do it. Let's see here. Columbian Thunder says 119 viewers, apparently. Not on this stream. It can't be that many. Not what if I would understand those numbers if I did a stream every day, but I don't. Nick Picarilli says, have you gotten a screener for Superman yet? Yes, I have. Cosmic Gaze 1994 says, Steve, as a fan of British royal history, what is your opinion of Ricardians and the groups like the Richard III Society? They're delusional lunatics. Probably with syphilis. All of them. They're delusional lunatics. Danger Kid says 123 lunatics among us right now. AK says, thanks for the shout out, Steve. Go to his channel, all of you, and subscribe. I don't want him to be another one video wonder where he makes a video and then disappears. YouTube is littered with those, and Steve is getting a little tired of being blamed for that. So I want him to stick around. Anyway, on the matter of Smallville, I'm still baffled how this super hottie version of Clark Kent doesn't have every high school girl dreaming about him all the time. I know you're being partially tongue-in-cheek, but I agree. I agreed from the beginning. It's ridiculous. If they'd got a normal actor, that's one thing. But Tom Welling, when he was, 20 whatever in that show, was a male model. He was astonishingly beautiful. How do you do a show that way? It's totally unbelievable. Once something mysterious started happening, once a figure in a blur of motion started doing all sorts of things, he'd be the very first thing everybody in Smallville would suspect. And, it's not like the showrunners didn't know what they had in him. Remember, I don't know if you do, you might be too young. Years and years and years ago, when that show had not yet aired, the WB put up posters all over the country, in subway stations and on billboards, showing what? Showing Tom Welling shirtless, tied to a fence post in a Kansas cornfield with a nugget of kryptonite draped around his neck. Porn, in other words, bondage porn. That was the image that they introduced this show to the world with. So they knew what they were doing. They knew the draw they had in Welling. And I think it works against the credibility of the show. You're watching it and thinking, why isn't, when Clark Kent wanders into Smallville or walks into a room of strangers, why isn't the very first thing they all say, good God, you're attractive? Never mind, good God, you're from Krypton. Just good God, you're attractive. They don't do it. Ryan says, be honest, how much flatware and loose change was gone once Christopher left? No flatware and no loose change. He did make rather free and easy with books and tech, but I'm happy to do that. I love giving things to people. So we'll have to see. I am convinced he will not become another AJAJK. He will not make one video and then disappear. I know that he won't. He will be back. He's probably still recovering. Sean says, Steve, sorry if this message doesn't make sense, as I write this among a full body convulsions, cold sweats, and muscle cramps resulting from withdrawal, only getting 1 to 2 Steve videos a day the last week. I know. I always have to tell people, please do not divert hatred onto my guests when you know they're the reason why you're not getting videos. Please don't do that. And if Christopher had stayed another week, I'm sure that things would have settled down so that I could have just made videos and he wouldn't have minded. I'm sure he wouldn't have minded. Monidora says hello. Divis Mirko says, do you like Glenn Cook's novels? Yes, very much so. Daniel Fesahay says, Steve, I'm not sure if you have, but can you review Joseph and His Brothers by Thomas Mann? Would love to hear your thoughts. Well, I don't do book reviews on my channel. I could write about it on Steve Reads, on Substack. That's my revived literary blog on Steve Reads. But I don't do book reviews on my channel. But I love it. I love the book. Josh Meyer says, let's say Steven Spielberg and Michael Bay direct 2 different films using the same screenplay. Are there any differences between the 2 films? Well, yeah, they have different directors of photography and different special effects groups that they go with and different editors especially. So yeah, the end product will look like either a Spielberg product or a Michael Bay product. But they didn't have anything to do with it, or very little to do with it. The auteur idea of directors, it's pure dude, bro. It's better to just get rid of it. SQE says, Steve, who do you think is the single worst human being in history? Again, with the favorites. I don't really know. It's tempting to think that the single worst human being in history is not known to history. It's tempting to think that. Or if you want to go with the largest amount of damage to the largest amount of people, you could do it that way. I don't know. Kevin J.N. says, is firing line addressed in the Buckley biography? Well, it comes up. Of course it does. I don't know what you mean by addressed. It's dramatized. It's given its historical due. It naturally comes up. Sean Patrick says, Steve, is the Anabasis considered a notch below other books in the ancient canon, if that's the correct term? No one actually considers these things in notches. So I'm not the only one who doesn't do favorites the way apparently the whole chat wants me to do. The Anabasis is a classic. It is really, really effective. I don't know about notches. Cosmic Gaze says, what is the Charles Dickens novel you dislike the least? Tale of Two Cities. Aslan says, Steve says, I don't really rank things, then drops the most epic top 10 ranking list at the end of every year. Yeah, but that's contemporary stuff. That's contemporary stuff. That's not like asking me top 10 epics. I mean, honestly, I've lived with these books forever. SQE says, Steve, do you eat meat? Oh, I eat plenty of meat when I have a guest. I don't eat any when I don't. Kevin J.N. says, Steve, how did you adjust to retirement? Was it a learning curve, or did you just dive into reading most of your waking hours? You know, this whole R word thing, this whole retirement thing, that also deserves a video of its own. I know what you people see. You see a kindly old man sitting on his fainting couch every day making a barrage of videos, and you think, oh, this guy's retired. I keep a literary section of a print newspaper. I am the editor of a print book section of a newspaper. I not only write a column for it, but I run herd on a whole passel of freelancers for that section, and I get paid for it. I review books for the American trade journals, Publishers Weekly and Kirkus Reviews, and also for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette and Martha's Vineyard. I get paid for that. I don't know that that's retirement. I don't know that that's retirement. What is retirement? Retirement in the usual American parlance means I'm going to intentionally stop doing things. I'm going to stop doing anything. And I don't do that. So I don't think I have adjusted to retirement. Rodensey says, Steve Tyler Hoechlin is genuinely 6 feet tall and relatively heavy. He was almost a pro baseball player, and you can see that he is tall with the likes of Welling and Roth pictured together a lot. Okay, fine. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I picked up the 1967 Norton Critical Edition of Moby Dick. Can't explain why, but I was drawn to something, that ugly green Spars cover. I know the Norton Criticals on Moby Dick are so much better looking in later editions, but they're not as good as that one. They're worse than that one because the Norton Critical editions were one of the first ones to jump on the bandwagon of, it doesn't matter how good the critical essays in the back are, it matters the skin color and bed partners of the people who wrote it. So the later Norton Critical editions are almost worthless. They're certainly a minefield. You don't know what you're getting with the next one and why the person was included. Whereas in those earlier volumes, it's just a question of scholarship. So you don't have to worry about it. DZGIN is referring to someone else. He's talking to someone else. Nick Piccarilli says, I'm reading The Searchers for June on the Range. Do you prefer the book or the movie? The movie. Thank you very much. Good Lord. Aslan says, you showed a book about Ottoman Greece once in a mail haul. What did you make of it? I thought it was boring. I remember that book. Really, really boring. Cosmic Ace says, Steve, do you have any thoughts on what may have happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? Well, I think the most obvious answer is the one that's the least appealing, which is that they were raided. The men were killed and probably buried, and the women and children were taken. It happened to colonies all the time, all up the eastern seacoast. So at the time, that's not space aliens or anything like that. So it doesn't feel quite as appealing. Colombian Thunder says, Steve, can you name your top 10 lists? Sean Patrick says, Steve, when was the last time you pushed a lawnmower? I'm sorry, but I find the image funny. I have never pushed a lawnmower. I have a surly houseboy. I don't know why the rest of you appear not to have one. Good Lord, man. DZG then says, yeah, when I think about it, I'm more in love with Fleischer's style and not story. No one likes the Fleischer cartoons. The only people who say they do are dude bros who are meaning to end conversation. They think that as many times, the more times they can end conversation and get everyone to look at them so that they can then explain what they've just said, that the more times they can do that, the better they're doing in conversation. And hence, they have no idea why everyone hates them. Why everyone hates them. They have no idea. That is not, in fact, how you win in conversation. That is not conversation. That is you being that guy. So if I were you, DZIGIN, I would stop saying that the Fleischer Superman cartoons are your favorite Superman iteration. I would stop saying that. It isn't true. It never was true. Instead, what you ought to do is search your heart, not the dude bro forums, and not what you think other people don't know so you can, oh, didn't you know that? Inform them, but rather your own heart. What do you actually like the most? That's what you should do. Martin S. says, my paperback edition of Cuba Fruit has arrived in the mail. It's a beautiful looking book. Then you've seen the dedication. Almost made me cry on camera. Gandhi says, I have been watching episodes of Firing Line on YouTube, and the level of discourse is startling compared to today. Well, yes. Rhesus monkeys flinging their own refuse would be startling compared to today. Today is no. It is. It's sometimes amazingly good. I think when you watch enough episodes, you can see sometimes in many episodes that Buckley is basically winging it. He basically does not know anything. What he's doing is waiting for his enemies to make even the smallest rhetorical slip up. And then he goes at that rather than really having a huge amount of foreknowledge. Sometimes he is, but a lot of times he's not. Anyway, it's still entertaining to watch, very much so. Karen P says, hi, Steve. I recently stumbled across House of David on YouTube. Are you familiar with it? If so, what is it? Good biblical history or what? I don't know House of David. On YouTube, you say? I don't know that. Manny says, no one should not read the last 3 Dune books. One should always stop at book 2 and then move on to another series. Steve is not always right. No, Manny is dead wrong. I'm pretty sure he's joking, but even if he isn't, he's dead wrong. I am always right. When it comes to books, I'm always right. And you will like Dune, God Emperor of Dune, and you will also like Heretics and Chapter House. I think God Emperor you will like more than them because they get a little lost in the weeds. But Manny, if he means it, he's just wrong. And again, not to be too repetitive, but I'll cite my own track record over Manny's. If he's sincere, he's wrong. Let's see. Poon Dog says, hey, hi, Steve. I'm reading One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at the moment. I think the movie was better. What do you think of the book? The movie is effortlessly better. The book is so bad. It's just so bad. Cosmic A says, what is and the movie, that's another perfect example. I never bring it up because I'm not all that fond of the movie. That's another perfect example of what I talk about. Whenever I say the movie is almost always better than the book, people always tell me, well, this guy doesn't read. He doesn't read anything. He's never read anything in his life. And And yet, when I bring up examples like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, what can you say? It's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Cosmic Gaze 1994 says, what is the king of dude bro novels? That's just a way of asking me my favorite. I can tell you what the first dude bro novel was, the one that inaugurated it all. Their text is The Old Man and the Sea. And then it just goes on from there. The Old Man and the Sea has almost all the quintessential hallmarks of dude bro literature. Almost all of them are in one place. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I'm reading Sailing Alone on your recommendation, and I'm really enjoying it. But I still think sailing alone around the world is borderline insane. It doesn't have to be around the world. It can be just any length of time. Where you're 4 days out, any length of time seems insane. Looking back on it, it is an insane thing to do. SQE says, Steve, who do you think is worse human being, Julius Caesar or Trump? Trump? He just started a war with Iran on his own head. No one's going to stop him. U.S. planes are almost certainly still in the air. He threatened Tehran with what sounded like a nuclear weapon. He has pauperized half the country. He has put military troops in opposing cities. And that's just the beginning. Keep in mind, we're not even halfway through 1 year of his next 20 years in office. They're doing the same thing. They are both destroying a part of a functioning republic. So in that sense, they are equally evil, but then it's a question of scale. No matter what Julius Caesar did to the functioning Republic of Rome, he couldn't affect China or the Philippines. Anyway, Rodensy says, are there any Iranian films you particularly like? Have you seen any of Close Up, Where is the Friend's House, or Taste of Cherry? No, I haven't seen any. I don't know anything about the subject at all. Oh my God, I could learn so much about the subject. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff. So many. When I was there, so many creative people. I swear, every dinner conversation was just an endless feast. And not just the other adults, but the young people as well. It was amazing. Just amazing. Sean Patrick says, okay, Steve, I won't ask you to rank books, but how about Wales, England, Ireland, Scotland? As countries, you mean Ireland first and second and third and fourth and fifth, and then those others somewhere down the line. Martin S. says, do you like Paul Bettany as Chaucer? Well, he's not really Chaucer in that movie. He's really good. Of course, he's really, really good, but he's not really Chaucer, right? He's just a comic character, that's all. But really, really well done. That whole movie is just so good. SQE says, Steve, do you think Alexander the Great was more impressive than Caesar? I'm personally not sure who to pick between the two. There's nothing impressive about Julius Caesar. Alexander the Great would get my vote. Age BW says, you should do a Blood Meridian read aloud for Garbox. Oh, I wish. If Blood Meridian were in the public domain, I would read it. I would do a read aloud in a heartbeat. Sean says, Steve, have your unique sleeping habits ever alarmed a loved one or a friend to the point they insisted you see a medical professional? If so, did you? My sleeping habits have been extensively studied by medical professionals. I haven't needed a loved one to tell me that. They've been extensively studied. Shoemaker says, Huey Long by T. Harry Williams. That's the one. That's the one. What a book. Oh my, what a book. Kevin J.N. says, oh no, Kevin J.N., where did you go? Let's go back up and find you. Where did you go? The chat jumped. Sorry about that. We'll find you. Kevin J.N., I'm glad I read out your name. We'll find you. Oh, good Lord, there are a lot of people here. How many people are here? Okay, we'll find you. There we are. That hilarious Philip K. Dick rant won't get you far with the sci-fi bros, I know. But nothing will. They're completely xenophobic. Ironically enough, considering the fiction they read, they're completely xenophobic. Nothing I could do would get in with them. Why are sci-fi booktubers so insular? Do you think they read outside their genres but just keep it to themselves? No, they don't read outside their genres. And that's why they're so insular, because they don't want anything to do with somebody who does. I have the credentials to join them. I have more than the credentials to join them. I have talked to a lot of their favorite authors. Not a question in an auditorium, but talked in easy chairs together. And I've read more science fiction than any of them have. But I have the credentials to join. But I also have the one fatal flaw, which is that I read and love other things. So they don't want me. Westfield Space Agency says, was the Huey Long bio by T. Harry Williams? Yes, it was. Jerome Jacobson says, any thoughts on George R.R. Martin's public meltdown? I haven't seen it. I got little echoes of it on social media, but I didn't look into the details. Lori says, you're breaking my heart by trashing all my favorite books. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. It is an occupational hazard of watching this channel. Aslet says, but keep in mind, I'm glad if you like them. If they give you pleasure, that's great by me. Aslan says, speaking of, when are we getting the okay, you say Taft, but it's Taft biography. There's no one in the works. I did it already. There's no one in the works. Josh Meyer says, I presume you're a massive fan of literary masterpiece Stoner. Can you give me a recommendation with similar vibes? Yeah, I can. If you want an experience that's very similar to Stoner, then what you should do is walk out your front door, turn right on the sidewalk, and walk along the sidewalk. And when the first woman that you come to, pull your hand back all the way like that and just slap her across the face. There you go. That ought to make you feel just about what Stoner does. Andrew, and you'll be arrested for that, but I wish you could be arrested for reading Stoner. Andrew says, reading John Ferling's biography of John Adams right now, a little dry, but overall good read. Yeah, Ferling is a little dry, but he's really good. He leaves no stone unturned. Cosmic A says, in your opinion, what is the best biography of Louis XIV? It's an old one. It's Louis XIV and 14 Million Frenchmen, and it's really good. DZIGIN says, Steve, could Don't Be a Fart be considered a Penguin classic? The way they are, it could easily be. Rhodesy says, have you seen the YouTube postmodernist videos? Do you like his channel? I don't pre-modernist. I don't know that channel. I don't know that name. Colombian Thunder says, from what I can tell, there is no medieval history starter kit. Oh my. Well, that's an omission. And again, assuming you can't say anything about Superman yet, I can say anything I want. I'm not a movie bro. I'm not going to have bridges burned if I spoil something. I'm not going to get my free ticket revoked. Even the friend in Hollywood who sent me the screener is not going to care. But I don't want, on the chance that it could come back to bite her, I don't want to do anything else. So I have to collect my thoughts. I need to watch it a few more times. Zach Simpson says, I feel like Spielberg's Lincoln is a masterpiece, but rarely see it talked about 13 years on. Wes Anderson did praise it recently, though. What did you make of it? Could have been a masterpiece. It could have been. If it had a narrative through line, it could have been a masterpiece. And if directors mattered, it would have had a narrative through line. I might point out, no, I don't mean to raise a dead horse and beat it a little more, but if it had been directed by John Ford, it would have had a narrative through line and it would have been a masterpiece. Instead, it's a collection of little masterpieces. It's a collection of little bits that are good here and there. No character stays in character, except very supporting characters. Most of the characters are absurd. Tommy Lee Jones just decided to do absurd. What's her name? Mary Todd Lincoln decided to just do absurd. Half the time, what's his name? As Lincoln is absurd. When it's good, it's very good, but it's just a collection of little bits and pieces, each one of them directed and not always obviously by the same person. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I grabbed a bunch of mystery books at a library sale by a guy named Benedict Brown. Nice looking books, but there strangely isn't much about him online. Did I get a bunch of duds? I don't know that name. I don't know that name at all, I don't think. Rhonda Cooper says, I was enjoying June on the Range, but then I had knee surgery and the medicine makes reading difficult. Your videos help a lot. Good Lord, knee surgery. What a nightmare. Oh, what a nightmare. I hope your prognosis is good. Sean Patrick says, Steve, is Neil Gaiman's career finished? I would say so, yeah. He seems to me to be a little bit too proud to go the indie route, and they're the only ones who'll have him. The indie route, or, the publishers who like the accusations again. When he steadfastly denies those accusations. I think it'd certainly be wise to consider his career over. I think he should do that. I think he should walk away from it. But you never know. We live in a post-shame era. We live in an era where evil is exalted. So you never know. Some Okie Dude says, June on the Range is going well for me. Finished The Sisters Brothers, and my reread of True Grit was fantastic. And True Grit gets better the more you do it. Rhodesy says, did you ever watch the procedural White Collar? Talk about the lead actor stealing every scene with ridiculous beauty. I don't think I know white collar. Boy, you people are bringing up a lot of stuff I don't think I recognize. Christina says, woohoo, caught a Stevestream, high steam, high all. Trip says, you probably talked about it already, but what's your prediction for how this Iran thing will play out? A lot of the cynics online are quoting Taco, but the military doesn't care about Taco. The military doesn't care about Trump always chickens out. Once you commit them, they're committed to the mission. I predict the worst. There is a racist, sexist, fascist, lying, moron, syphilitic, fraud, lunatic in control of the country. And the elements of the country that can control him, specifically the legislative branch, are simply not doing it. They're simply not doing it. And every once in a while, maybe when they're tempted to do it, he gives them a reminder of what will happen to them if they don't. As the news from Minnesota shows, he will have them killed. So they don't. They're not going to step out of line. So I predict the worst. What would stop the worst from happening? Jason says, any thoughts on the book or movie God's Little Acre? Not much. No thoughts really. Andrew Russell says, what do you think of Tarantino movies? They're mostly enjoyable. Some Okie Dude says, I'm now reading All God's Children and Cities of the Plain. You don't have to. You could stop. You read a Louis L'Amour instead. Cosmic Gaze says, how would you respond to people who say that Jefferson was better than John Adams because John Adams was an elitist? Jefferson was a slave raper. He raped underage female slaves. How elitist do you have to be that bad? I would argue there's no degree of elitism you could have that would be that bad. Jefferson raped underage female slaves. That's as bad gets. So slavery would be my one word response to those people. AKJAK says, I can promise at least one other video, Steve. I'll either stay awake long enough to make it tonight or fall asleep watching your stream. Yeah, you people in your sleep, you just love to sleep. Just 10, 12, 15 hours a night. God help us. You're asleep on the David Murphy Memorial cot and you roll over, and I'm thinking, so the slow waking up process is going to happen. And then you just roll back over. Good for another 2 hours. Bye-bye. I'm hoping for more than one video from you. You need to get into a rhythm. That's the thing I always tell people when they're starting. You need to get into a rhythm. It needs to be a thing you do rather than a special thing you try. If it's a thing you do, then you will keep doing it. And there's plenty of material on BookTube to help you make videos. Plenty. That video that I watched, where when you were doing book-related questions, so often movies were coming to your mind. Lean into that. If movies are a part of the active literature vocabulary of your mind, then lean into it. But don't make just one video and be another one of Steve's Lost Boys. Don't do that. Sean Patrick says, Steve, if every politician was forced to read Fussel's The Great War in Modern Memory, could we possibly have a more peaceful world? No. No, we couldn't. Aslan is responding to someone else and getting a response in return. Okay, the Big Chef. Steve, I'm thinking of going to vocational school. What's your favorite trade? Please answer carefully. I'm basing my future around the favorite of Steve, and there'll be no going back once you answer. I wouldn't know what the trade is now. The meme for a while was learn to code. Is that still it? Something to do with AI or coding? You definitely want to cast the tea leaves and find one that has a growth future. So coding, yes, but also environmental systems. Cool houses, solar panels, that sort of thing. The world is changing. And that's a growth industry, no matter what the current regime running this country says. Daniel Fesahay says, thoughts on Emily Wilson's Iliad? I was lucky to pick that up along with Everyman edition of Joseph and His Brothers, hence earlier question, and the Norton Tale of Genji for free at work. I hope the Tale of Genji, the Norton Tale of Genji that you got was a paperback so that it has a nice blurb. I'm not a big fan of the Emily Wilson Iliad. And I now want your copy of the Everyman Joseph and His Brother. Cosmic K says, I can't help but feel Elizabeth I is overrated. Her cruel treatment of the Irish sticks out. Thoughts? She had cruel treatment of the Irish. Yeah. but she rose to the occasion of the challenges to her queenship with courage. And also, she had a genuinely modern idea of internality, of wit. I don't forgive her for her crimes against Ireland, but I don't think she's overrated. No. Manny says, I've been reading Plutarch's Lives for a while now, and while slow reading, I can't help but agree with Will Durant's description of him as completely lovable. I'm guessing you are also a fan. I am a huge fan of Plutarch, yes. Kevin L says, are Tom Clavin's Histories of the American West worth reading? I was thinking of reading one for June on the Range. Well, shouldn't you all you people thinking about these things for June on the Range, stop thinking and start committing? Don't you people read really slow and have lots of other things to do? You're going to be thinking about these things, and June on the Range is going to end. Clavin's books are good. You pick one of them and read it. Reba Panic says, I started reading the Iliad, and I found it boring. Most of it primitive macho boasting mixed with violence and hundreds of names that never come back. Big DNF. Well, I wouldn't want you to read a book you found boring. Aslan says, what history of the 19th century would you recommend to complement Durant's story of civilization? There was one. Oh my God, I know this. The Imperial Century by David Kennedy. Isn't that what it's called? The Imperial Century? It's terrific. Absolutely terrific. Might, if you can find it, also want to read the Pax Britannica trilogy by James Morris. Also terrific. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I read Overy's The Bombers and the Bombed, and it was harrowing. Yeah, it's a great book. Allied bombing killed more French citizens than the Wehrmacht. Yes, it did. The Allies were just bombing civilian cities. That's all. They were just bombing civilian targets out of bloodlust. I know Winston Churchill put a nice big bow on it, but it was bloodlust. Trip asks, are Buckley's books any good? I think that God and Man at Yale is pretty good in a tell-all kind of way. The others, no, not at all. Aslan says, when will we get a 20.2K Q&A? We should probably do one. I was thinking about that. We should probably do one. I made you people go 2 whole days without videos, so I probably owe you one. Or Josh Meyer says, well, who do you think directs, oh, you're still on directors again, directs the cinematographers and the editor? The director does. That's a reason why it's easy to spot a Wes Anderson or a Quentin Tarantino film, if you say so. If you say so. It's possible that you can spot one of their films because they found a DP they liked, who had the vision they most certainly did not have. What would they storyboard on their own? But you could be right. Divas Mirko says, why would anyone suffer a surly houseboy? Well, they kind of come that way. It's not a pleasant lot in life. Gandhi says, Tannhaus shared in an interview that Buckley never said a negative word about Gore Vidal when his name was mentioned. And Vidal had nothing but bad words to say when Buckley's name came up. Well, Buckley said one bad word on camera in front of 40 million people. But I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Kevin J.N. says, Limbo, Steve Donahue. Loved Cuba Fruit, Steve. Just noticed your name in the prologue. Great work, sir. I did not see that coming. I did not see my mention in the book coming. Street Medic is here. I used to watch Firing Line a lot. PBS was great back then. Vincent Price hosting Mystery, Nova, Louis Rukeyser, and so many others. Even the ones you didn't agree with were great. I agree. Daniel Fessahay said, thanks for your video on Kipling's Jungle Books. As a Brit, I feel he gets an unfair rap. People often overlook the genius behind him. Very much they do. Yeah. I recently read The Exchange between T.S. Eliot and George Orwell. It is fascinating. Colombian Thunder says, I've seen your videos on Dude Bros, but I'm still a bit lost. How do you differentiate genuine Dude Bro lit from books that aren't Dude Bro, but that group has adopted, such as Dostoevsky? Well, a book can be both, right? There is a dualistic nature to these things. A book can be a Dude Bro book and still be good. So, yes, they have wholeheartedly adopted Dostoevsky. Wholeheartedly. There are some certain signs to look for. If you look up my video, The 7 Sins of Dude Bro Lit, you'll see the general shape of what you should look for in Dude Bro Lit. There are signs to look for, and great books can fulfill those signs. Legitimately great books that are not Dude Bro books can fulfill those signs, so some Dude Bros will embrace them. The way to know for sure that you're dealing with a Dude Bro book is if it's embraced by nobody else. Krista says, Caesar at least had better hair and undoubtedly a better tan. Now, Caesar was bald as an egg, just like Trump. Trump hasn't been able to grow facial hair on his body, anywhere on his body, since a certain medical emergency that he had about 35 years ago. I could, if I went back in my records, I could get you the exact date where he disappeared from public view and came back after having had a specific medical emergency that left him unable to grow any facial hair anywhere on his body, and despite the presence of Barron, Trump left him infertile. And if you put those two together, not being able to grow facial hair and being impotent, I bet a lot of you will know what the emergency was. It was known in New York at the time. Cosmic Gaze says, Steve, how did you like Papua New Guinea? I asked because it's often referred to as the most exotic country to visit. I loved it. It was brutal, but I loved it. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I've read several Dan Simmons books and love them, but I've heard Drood sort of bogs down. True, it is true. Unfortunately, it is true. Drood has a great ending, and it has some terrifically creepy moments, but it does bog. Yeah, it does lag. Unfortunately, it's prime material, but it doesn't really work. Not the way the others do. Some Okie dude said, I thought Hyperion was just 8. Okay, I don't know that word, but the just leads me to think that it's negative, or at least lukewarm. And that is incorrect. We have a lot of incorrect literary opinions. Hyperion is not whatever that word is. It's not just anything. It's brilliant. Jacob Tyler says, hey, Steve, I realized something working at the post office. You would have made a great mailman. No, I would not have made a great mailman. You get to walk a lot, talk to people, and pet all kinds of dogs. Well, you've hit the nail on the head right there. I wouldn't have to worry about angry dogs, but I also wouldn't get any work done. I would just spend all day talking to them. And to patrons en route, aren't mailmen timed? Aren't they timed and all that? I know. I don't think that would work at all. No, wait. The chat jumped again. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Rodency says, yes, I'm sure your time in Iran was very fulfilling conversationally. Persians are uniquely passionate people. I love the people, except for the ones I didn't love. My dogs and I traveled in what I guess you would call the back country, and met an actual group of bandits, an actual group of people who were just hanging out waiting to rob people. They weren't my favorite, but everybody else that I met, yes. Their film industry is just beautiful, remarkably poetic. I hope you get around to it. Yeah, we only talked about things Western when I was there. So and there was no technology to show a visitor a movie. So it never even came up. Instead, it was mostly literature that we talked about. And it was kind of funny. it was kind of funny. Because at the time and still I am rather proud of Irish literature. And Persian literature just dwarfs it in every way. It just dwarfs it in every way. The only nationality that can compete with Persian literature is Chinese literature, and other than that, all the rest of us are children compared to it. So it got a little bit fun, a little bit heated. Maximus Stedich says, speaking of Iran, how did you like Dick Davis's new translation of Khosrow and I did not read it. I really admire what he has done for Persian epic English translation. I didn't read it. DZIGIN says, do you like scary movie franchise or the Wayans Brothers movies at all? I love the Wayans Brothers and the scary movie franchise. I think they're great. Absolutely great. Colombian Notice says, Steve's sleeping pattern is genuinely a superpower, and I'm superbly jealous. Felt like an impediment this last week. This last week reminded me that what I say all the time, I say it jokingly, but it is true, that I've spent a huge proportion of my life just waiting for people to wake up. Sean Patrick says, Steve, what are your thoughts on dogs being leashed or unleashed? Does it depend on the situation? The dog? Almost always, it's good to have them leashed, unless you are in complete control of every aspect of your surroundings. And the only reason that I see people who are not in complete control of every aspect of their surroundings take their dog out unleashed is because ultimately, no matter how shocked they'd be if I said it, ultimately, they just don't care all that much about the dog. If it dies, it dies. I'll have a bad day, maybe 2 bad days. Ultimately, that's it. That I'm not going to take this precaution for you. I'm going to let you off a leash and walk next to me on a sidewalk next to a 4-lane busy highway. And if something happens to you, if you happen to die a horrible, painful death, well, that'll suck for me just a little, and then I'll get another dog. Same thing. I've seen plenty and plenty of YouTube footage of people letting their dogs run free as the wind, the way God intended, through the chaparral of the American Southwest, which is loaded with rattlesnakes. And if one happens to bite your dog and your dog dies a horrible, agonizing, painful death, well, you know, I have never seen a person do that with a dog unleashed who would do that with a baby, with a human baby. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't even cross their mind. We're moving a couch out of here and the dog's roaming around the house. We're going to leave the front door wide open and there's a road right there at the sidewalk. You would, if there was a baby involved, you wouldn't do that. With a dog, it's not that big a deal. No, unless you can completely control your environment, every aspect of it, and you know that ahead of time, your dog should be leashed. If you have conditioned your dog correctly to the leash, they won't mind at all. Anyway, Aslan says fantasy booktuber not only read just fantasy, they only read authors who only write fantasy. Yes, and they also only read fantasy authors that they each read. There's no such thing as a fantasy tube author who loves an author none of the others have read. There's no such thing as that. Rodensey says, did you find that Palestinians were like Persians in that sense of being artistic and thoughtful? I was always struck by the casual poetry of Levantine people's thoughts and conversations. I don't think I caught Palestinians at their best. To me, it wasn't anything like anywhere in Persia, old Persia. Some Okie Dude says, I would say I'm a fantasy booktuber very loosely, but I read outside my favorite genres and encourage others to do so. Then you must be an outcast among them. Here, come here. Come on, up here. There you go. There you go. Street Medic. My uncle owns a house built on one of Huey Long's bodyguards. By one of Huey Long's bodyguards. It has peepholes in the walls so he could see any intruders. Apparently, they were pretty paranoid. Didn't save him, did it? Sean Patrick says, Steve, will people be reading Agatha Christie in 50 years? Yes, if they're reading anything. I don't want to gloom up the Stevestream, but there's a very, very strong possibility that we are entering World War III. And World War III will be nuclear. And if it is, there won't be anybody reading anything in 50 years. Let's move on to happier subjects. Danger Kid. A Knight's Tale is such an incredible movie, incredible performances, and the choice to use modern music in the soundtrack is so inspired. Okay, thank you. I forgot to mention the title of the movie I was praising. Yes, A Knight's Tale. The decision for the modern music is great. Everything about it is great. AKA JK says, I was rewatching Infinity War and Endgame recently. I was trying to. With a certain hedgehog guest, I was trying to. He wasn't all that interested. And was wondering how Thanos, with no stones, manhandled Thor. Shouldn't that fight go the exact opposite way? Well, yeah. He also manhandles the Hulk. With or without stones, he manhandles the Hulk with physical force. Yeah, I don't get. I do get you want to overpower Thanos so that you have an effective movie, and you want to underpower Thor for the same reason. But I wish it had been different, but it's still wonderful. Josh Meyer says, you would have been a great English teacher. Thank you. Colombian Thunder says, were then your first impressions on Superman that you enjoyed it? I'm excited, but also very cautious. Well, you don't need to know that I have a screener to know that my first impressions were that I enjoyed it, because what are my first impressions? Superdog. Crypto, the Superdog, makes his appearance. Obviously. I think people are going to love it. But I need to think about it more. I need to watch it a few more times. Cosmic A says, will Penguin ever get so bad that they publish The Art of the Deal as a Penguin classic? Well, no, but not because of any of the reasons. A fascist dictator, someone who is going to destroy the whole world. Not for that, but because he's a straight white man. That's why. AJ says, hi, Steve, just joined and see you're talking about movies. I'm trying not to. I've got a true believer who thinks that directors matter. Just wondering, any opinions on either Shane or Unforgiven? I like both of them. I don't love them. They're missing a key ingredient. Both of them are. They're both missing the Duke. Street Medic says the question is, will people be reading at all in 50 years? Yeah, that's Poon Dog says, Steve, I'm thinking about buying Library of America's collected stories of Flannery O'Connor. Is she worth a read? Is Flannery O'Connor worth a read? You're just lucky Hannah's books isn't here. Yeah, Flannery O'Connor is worth a read and a reread. Yeah, Flannery O'Connor is great. Sean Patrick says, Steve, I recently got a Kobo, and I found that with patience, I'm able to amass an incredible amount of good books for $2.99 or less. You're paying money? My policy is never to spend more than that on any single ebook. Sean Patrick, why don't you email me? Street Medic, so what's your favorite martial art? Kendo. Brian Constantine says, wanted to thank you on Powers recommend on Twain's biography. I did it instead of the new one and enjoyed it. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? Put any four paragraphs in any chapter that you read under a microscope and really study what's going on. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. Oh, what a book.